Christian parenting.
Happy New Year, friends. It's Courtney DeFeo here. I am your host of Pardon the Mess podcast, and I'm super excited about what's to come for this year and so thrilled you're with me on the journey of parenting and faith. And we're going to talk about all of those things today, but I have a very special guest to kick off the new year, and I've been thinking about this conversation for some time, and he is just falling into the perfect spot at the perfect time. So it is my brother, Drew McClure. And to give you context, he was born when my sister and I were 9 and 11. So for so long, he was the baby brother. And then he just grew up, and he was always wise and intelligent and just something really special about him. So if you have one of those surprise babies, you need to buckle in because there's something God wanted them to be on this earth. So just enjoy that. But he grew up, and he's an amazing husband to Caroline. He's the father of my 3 nieces and nephews, and they are all 3 adorable and amazing. And so we're going to talk in 2 parts. The first part, really quick, I think is important, as he talks a little bit about his story from becoming a pastor. He actually had a church when he was in college at Clemson that he started in his apartment with his friend, and then he became a pastor at a couple big churches, one of those in Atlanta, Georgia, and has now moved over into a coaching role. But in the first part, he talks about growing up and how he was doing some not so great things in middle school. My parents had no idea. So sorry, Mom. I think you know all this stuff. But I just wanted it to show you like what God can do with someone in a relationship with them. And God really convicted his heart to be something different and to make a shift in his life. And so I hope it's great encouragement to you if you've got kids that are, maybe you don't even know that they're hiding and making crazy decisions, but God's got them. And then the bulk of our conversation is all around our performance as a parent. And so I got to watch him years ago. It was this full circle moment. For me, if you didn't know, I used to work at Chick-fil-A corporate headquarters, and it was an amazing part of my life before I had kids. And so there was always these annual meetings that people would go to. And then my brother called me one day and said, I'm getting to speak at a huge Chick-fil-A meeting. And I'm like, what? But because of his work with his company, People Profit, where he's a human performance coach, Chick-fil-A, the organization, had him come speak to their regional meetings. So for the span of a week, they had every region of every operator of every Chick-fil-A come through. And my baby brother got to be a speaker. And so I flew in and I sat in the audience, and it was so full circle to watch this kid that I've always adored grow up to be this insanely wise business owner and coach. And it was really, really special. And so I've always wanted to have him on, but I thought today is the perfect day because we are starting out the new year. And I don't know if you're going into the new year beat and you're exhausted and you have no energy, or maybe you've got a little bit of pep in your step, but it maybe burns out by February. And so we're going to ask him, or I'm going to ask him about that. Like, let's talk energy. So what are ways that we can avoid burnout? And he helps companies eliminate burnout and blind spots. And he helps all these companies from huge ones to small ones quickly increase their capacity and build a better culture. And we want that as parents. We're the CEO of this home, us and our husband. So we want to build better capacity as parents, and we need to know how to do that. And so he goes through 4 areas at the end, and I'm going to post those on social media. This is probably one of those episodes that you're going to want to go back and listen to because Drew just packs it with wisdom. He'll just say something on the fly, and you're like, wait, go back. How did you word that? He's just got a gift, and I think you'll really find this super practical. My challenge to you today is, as he talks about in the end, is what is one thing? As he talks about areas from physical to emotional to your mind to spiritual life, he focuses us so well to say, what's one thing? Don't try everything at once. What's one thing you want to make traction on? And let's go from there. So enjoy Drew McClure. Hello, Drew.
Hi, sis.
Where'd you get those cool shoes in the background? You got a little...
Oh, yeah. So, sorry, I'm doing nice. Terrible podcast, guys. The first founders retreat that Jordan and I did with our company, for whatever reason, I guess because his name's Jordan, Air Jordans.
Oh, cute.
One of those for each of us, and all the founders signed it as like a memento.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know if West had just thrown one of his shoes up there, but it looks a little bit.
He steals it. He steals it every time. And I'm like, where'd it go? It's in his room again.
It's amazing. All right. Well, in my intro, I bragged about you, but tell the good folks about you a little more. Ages of the kids, where you're sitting right now, stage of life, anything.
Yeah. Kids 11, 9, and 7, 14 years of marriage to my beautiful wife.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sitting in my work from home office, which is a blessing and a curse because I never leave this place. Yeah, and I got my dog outside sleeping on the couch, which that was another thing that we decided to lob into our life and
Yeah.
love it for the kids. Don't always love it for us.
Uh-huh. Caroline called me. It was like, should I do it? And I'm like, yes and no. I mean, it's so good and bad. It's the best thing we've ever done. And it is legit. It's
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah, yeah.
I
And he's
mean,
almost died like 5 times because our kids. I mean, yeah, well, this week he ate half a pint of chocolate ice cream because they left that around. So we're shooting hydrogen peroxide down his throat and almost crying, going, "Sorry, man, sorry," trying to get him to throw up. So
and
that's
you're
our
like,
life right
can't
now.
take you to the vet because that's like
No.
$500 just by
And they're
walking.
going to do the same thing. They're just going to make him throw up. And so our neighbor was like a nurse, and she's like, "No, no, no, just throw some hydrogen peroxide down his throat, and I'll be good."
Buddy. Oh my. And then the haircuts. Are you like grooming him yourself or what's happening with
No,
haircuts?
no, no. He gets face and fanny, which is what they call it.
Yeah.
Like once a month, he's got to get face and fanny. I mean, just another expense. It's so fun.
All right, we have a topic to get to, but first, can I have tried to tell this story a million times and I don't think I do it justice, but can you walk back to that moment in high school where you made a switch from like, I don't think this path is going to go well for me. And this is
Yeah.
kind of a good story for the beginning of the year for either of us. I mean, as parents, but also for our kids. So give people hope that kids can change. What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So, I was living what I didn't know at the time fully. I mean, I did. I was definitely feeling guilty, but I had somehow rationalized it in my head. But I was living kind of a double life.
Hmm.
We went to private school. Obviously, we were a church going family, God loving family. And I had those friends from church and from private school. But then
Hmm.
I had my neighborhood friends that I grew up with from the time I was born. And most of them were not like us, but they were my best friends.
Yeah.
And they were also anywhere from 2 to 3 years older than me.
Hmm.
And so they were into stuff earlier than me. And even looking back, I still have to say this, like they were very protective of me, even though they were leading me
Mm.
down a wrong path. Like they also stood up for me a lot and were like, "You don't have to do this." Or
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
so I still look back with a lot of love. They were just misguided themselves. But yeah, I smoked pot for the first time in like end of 6th grade, which is kind of wild. I have a 6th grader, so holy crap.
Yeah.
Um, and there was just one house in the neighborhood with hardly any parental supervision, like hardly any at all. And my older friend just got to do whatever he wanted. And so we would drink on the weekends, smoke pot some, and that continued until I think it was my freshman year of high school. So now I'm at a public school with all my friends, and I was starting to feel it more like my worlds kind of collided.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, now I am who I am. And I remember a couple of things happened. One, I showed up drunk to a football game and I thought I'd covered it.
Oh.
And I'd actually spilled some like perfume or like some cologne got in my eyes because I was trying to mask the smell. And I hadn't smoked pot, but this girl that I really respected and really liked, she was a popular girl in my grade, saw me. She's like, "Are you high?" And I
Oh.
was like, "No, I'm really not." And she's like, "What?" And I saw like how disappointed she looked.
Oh.
And I was like, "Dang, is that who I'm going to be? Like, am I in this
Mm.
side of high school?" And then I kind of wrestled with it some more. And then I had another night at my friend's house where I'd probably told my mom something and I was doing something else. And I came home early that morning and one of my friends had recently been arrested
Mm.
and that was kind of on her mind. And so when I came in, she gave me this big hug and she just said, "I'm so glad I never have to worry about where you've been."
Mm.
And I was just trying to get by her. Like I didn't even want the interaction. I just wanted to go take a shower. I
Yeah.
was feeling guilty. And when she said that, something like broke in me. And I remember
Mm.
going upstairs and being like, "Who do you want to be?" Like,
Wow.
am I a druggie? Like, is that
Mm.
lying to my parents? And I cried and I asked for forgiveness for like the first time, not trying to get to heaven, but just like,
Wow.
I really need forgiveness. I want different. And something switched. It was really magical. Like something switched to me, like a resolve that I'm not going to be this person.
Wow.
And I'd stopped hanging out with my friends. I remember like I just game planned it. I was like, "God, what do I say?" And I was like, "All right, I know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that I'm taking soccer seriously now. And so I probably won't be around as much."
Okay.
And they were like, okay, cool. Yeah. Like they respected, they knew I was like the athletic one in the group. They were skaters and doing whatever else, but they're like, yeah, he's really good. And they kept calling until they didn't.
Mm.
And that was kind of hard, but we were, at least at the time, we weren't like playing at each other's houses. We were in high
Yeah,
school and
yeah,
they
yeah,
were
yeah.
older than me. And so life just luckily kind of moved on. But I had like 6 months of like no friends
Wow.
and not knowing who to sit with at the lunch table and just me reading my Bible at night and not sure what was going on. And then it hit me one day that I had some good friends I played soccer with that I thought were at least quality guys. I didn't know if they were believers or not, but they were quality guys. And what if I got closer with them?
Mm.
And they turned to be the friends we were talking about. They turned to be my best friends. And we all kind of went on that spiritual path together. And it was life changing for sure.
And you're still hanging with them today, which is just so fun. So fun.
Yeah.
Okay. As a mom, I think it just breaks my heart because I was older, so I wasn't around. I like to think that I would have sniffed it out, but like I'm 9 years ahead of you, so I was long gone, out of the
Gone. Yeah.
house. But like mom and dad had no clue. And what I think it reminds parents is like they had no clue and God sorted it out. Like you had
Yeah.
a whole nother life that they didn't know. And you found your way back to faith and friends and God did that. And I think sometimes like we put it all on ourselves that like we have to catch it. We have to fix it. We have to be your Holy Spirit. We have to be your conscience. And he did that all without mom and dad even having a clue that it was going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, two things. One of my friends, same friend group. By the way, we Marco Polo every day. I don't know if
Mm,
y'all have talked about that app on here,
no.
but it's the best thing we have found to keep connection with busy people when you don't live near
Wow.
each other or it's every day we
It's
are on Marco
amazing.
Polo and it's
Which if
kept
y'all
our
don't know, it's like a walkie-talkie, right? Like, and you can,
it's a video app where the best part about it is normally it's when can I see you in person or can we find a time to connect on the phone?
mhm.
It's just hard to find. And so you can do groups. So the one I'm on right now is me and two of my friends and you can watch it at your convenience. If you're busy all day, fine. You're busy all day. When you have a minute, you can sneak outside. You can get it. You can watch, the two videos that they left today, checking in or updating you on life on something. And then you can respond when you want to, but it keeps an ongoing connection with the people you love
Yeah,
without having to schedule it and all that kind of stuff. So
it's
that's
the
awesome.
best.
But one of them was talking about how they just found that his liquor cabinet was oddly empty. And one of the bottles was just water.
Oh
And
my
he's like,
gosh.
holy crap, my oldest daughter has been drinking and
Oh my
taking our
gosh.
stuff. And so he was just processing with us, which again is why I love the app. He's able just to process like, how do I think about this? I'm trying not to fly off the handle, but I'm concerned. And we're like, man, it's obviously serious and a conversation you got to have. Yet at the same time, don't let your mind go to she's about to become this lost degenerate or whatever. I was like, I smoked pot in 6th grade.
Right.
Like, what are we talking about here? She snuck into your alcohol as a senior in high school. Like, it's
That's
not
so true.
great. But where your mind can go about what does this mean and who's she going to be and all that stuff, it's like we got to temper that a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean we don't know anything. It might be, but it doesn't. Also, it might not be. It might just be a stupid
That's so
mistake.
true.
And the other thing I take comfort in is like, even though, yeah, sure, you could really say, well, how did mom not know? Whatever. They sowed enough love and belief in us
Mm,
that brought me back.
that's so good.
And so I think that verse, love covers a multitude of sins, is what I bank on every day as a parent. Like,
Yeah.
I
That's
know I suck
mom's
at
favorite.
this.
Yeah.
I know I suck at this, but you do know I love you. And that's got to
Right.
count for something. I remember my friend who's a pediatric doctor. He used to come over a lot because he doesn't have a family. He's not married. He works all the time. So he's Uncle Nick. He comes to our house to get that fix. And I was just, I'm not good at this. And I feel like I'm not, handling my kids' emotions well like this. And he's like, stop. I was like,
Mm,
what? He goes, you're acting like you're an average or below average parent. And he's like, from
wow.
what I see every day, you're in like the top echelon. And I was
Wow.
like, why? And he goes, dude, you just don't have any good comparables. He's like,
Wow.
most kids do not have food on the table or a family they feel comfortable being themselves around or feel loved or protected. And he's like, I walk in here and I see all those things. I see food on the table.
Yep.
I see kids that feel loved and comfortable being themselves around you, safe
Yep.
with you. He's like, that's like 98% of parenting. He's
Yep.
like, everything else is like the other 2% that you're trying to set them up a little bit better for success. And it just took a huge weight off of me. Again, not to to take away the learning lessons and growth lessons, but like you think you're failing when really you're actually doing a lot of the main stuff that is all they need. They know they can call you. They know they can come to you. They know that they're loved. They're believed in. Like, okay, the rest we can pay for their therapy later. You know?
Start a fund. Drew, I totally agree. And I'm glad you reminded us that, because this is the first episode for the new year. And it's like we go in, and this podcast even can be like, there's another thing we need to do. And I see that in you every time I'm around you at the holidays. Like, I think I try to send you a text every time to be like, I see the way that you look at them. I see the tenderness in your eyes. I see that they run for you. And Caroline too, like they're so loved by you guys. And so I'm glad you started there with parenting stuff. All right. Hard right shift to one of the reasons I want to have you on here. So when you went from ministry, and try to fold in how many years you did, but you were a pastor, ministry, and then you switched into your new job now. And one of the things that you said that really struck with me is how everything is connected, how you would take even your pastor role and go into businesses, and people would think, well, my sales are down, I suck at this job. And then because you would kind of dig at the full picture of who they were, sometimes you would ask them about their marriage, or you would talk to them about their mental health. And then all of a sudden their sales skyrocket because you're talking about the whole thing. And so as we think about the new year and parents, we can get overwhelmed at like all the things I need to do for myself. I need to lose weight. I need to cook dinner more. The kids need to do this, that, and that. And we're kind of like coming in exhausted. And so that's like 500 questions in one. I want to talk about energy, but tell me tell me about that experience going from a pastor and then trying to help people in your coaching job be, quote, successful at what they do, and seeing how it's all related. Does that even make sense? I'm throwing a big question.
Now or then? Like what I saw at the beginning?
I guess when you first saw then, and how you kind of thought, like what I saw in you is you weren't changing who you are or the gift that you bring, as far as like you're insightful, you make complicated things understandable, you give people actionable steps. And you did that as a pastor, but now you're seeing it in the business world. And so I think what did you see then? And then you can share now too.
Yeah. I mean, I had a massive insecurity at first. Like I remember one of the first real clients I landed that wasn't somebody that knew me from the church, that just needed life help or whatever, was somebody that worked for a hedge fund in downtown Atlanta. And they had a budget for getting a coach, and they knew about me from my podcast, and they wanted me. And I was like, great, let's do it. I was already a little insecure about it. And then it got worse. We said, yeah, but you got to come to our office. My boss has to meet you first, and he's got to approve you. And I was like, oh crap. Okay. So I'm driving there, and I'm like Googling, what is a hedge fund? Like that was where I was at in business. I was like, what is a hedge fund? Like, but the thing that I've always bet on is like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like I'll figure it out. And that's how I felt about coaching. Like it's how I felt about ministry. Like I'll figure it out. Like I'm sure I can add value somewhere. And so I get in there, and I really did. At the time, I never had a panic attack. I've had some now since, but I almost had one sitting in the corner office of this high rise in Atlanta going, what is he going to ask me? What do I even do? I don't know how to do a hedge fund. And then I went up and went to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror, and I said, just be yourself. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I came back in, and just probably like this podcast, he started asking me my story, and I just started telling my story and told him why I had transitioned and what I was trying to do now and who I'd worked with. And he said, what in the world qualifies you? He's like, I love your story. I love it because I don't, from what I'm hearing, what in the world would qualify you to coach one of my people? And I said, well, and this felt like kind of the Holy Spirit wisdom in the moment. I was like, well, if you need someone to help him like actually do the work of hedge fund, I'm not your person. But you've already hired him. He's already got the degree. Your people are doing that work. So I'm not going to advise him at all on anything to do with money. But I was like, if you need him to step up, if you're looking for his performance to be better, I said, I spent the last decade getting under the hood of people's lives, figuring out what makes them tick and helping them be better. And so if that's what you need, then I am the right guy. And he was like, that's exactly what we need.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And that was the first time I was like, I hope I can do it. But
you have done it.
But it sorted it in my head. I was like, I'm not actually here. And I tell the businesses we work with today, like we work with Chick-fil-A's, we work with marketing companies, we work with all different types of people. And I'm like, I'm not a specialist in your business. Yeah. I'm a specialist in people. And so if you want your people to be at their best, then that's what we do. If you need specific consulting advice about that industry, I'm not your guy. Now, my business partner has actually gotten really good at that. And so he can help on the organizational development side and all that stuff. But yeah, so then what I would fast forward to is I saw later, especially around the pandemic, on my business podcast, I always ask a question. I asked 5 questions, but one was, what keeps you up at night?
Mm-hmm.
And I started hearing an alarming amount of people saying, my people burning out.
Yep.
That the pressure or the loneliness or the isolation or the high pace is killing them. Yep. And I don't want to sacrifice. And I think this is how your parents probably feel, how us as humans feel. Like, we don't want to give up on our goals. We don't want to not be driven, but we don't want to die in the process.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Right. And so I kind of took that as a challenge of like, oh, I feel it. Cause again, I started having panic attacks for the first time. My mental health was deteriorating. I felt like my physical health was deteriorating because I was so stressed about trying to push my business forward and trying to provide and trying to do all this stuff. And I was like, okay, is there a way in which we can perform at a high level and thrive at the same time? And so that's, I think, what we could talk about. There is hope for that. 100%.
Okay, give it to us. Because I think this is the perfect time. It's like, okay, reset, new year, 2024 was hard. And like, there's nothing I want to do better in the entire world than parent these girls. Yeah. Like, and I think you would feel the same. There's a lot of moms listening. So you can tailor it to just parents in general, but there's mostly moms listening. And you see this with Caroline. It's like, we care so much about that. Do we care about our health? She cares more than I do, but do we care about making money? But for the core of a mom, it's like, there's so much identity wrapped up in that. And so you get the passion, but I can also just run myself into the ground through shame or through like burnout, through comparison, through busyness. So if I'm your client and you're like, and I know you normally do businesses, but treat us moms like a client. Yeah. And I know you need specifics, but what are some of your overall observations about parents and how we could kind of rethink how we don't burn out so fast this year?
Yeah. I mean, I see it in higher percentages in the women CEOs that we work with, but it's something I think everybody struggles with. But speaking uniquely to moms, way higher percentages feel guilt and shame around recovery, around really any investment in themselves. And everything is what I'm investing into and not what I'm bringing back into myself. And so there's a very simple formula around growth. If we want to grow, it's stress plus recovery equals growth. Okay. And it's just 2 variables. One, if you think about stress, it doesn't mean like mental stress. It just means output of energy. Okay. That like I'm giving myself to something today. I'm giving myself to my kids, to my schedule, to my work, to my husband. And I need to also get recovery if I want to grow. So we think about it like a muscle. Like if I wanted to get stronger this year, I'm going to have to output energy. I'm going to have to get under some kind of bar, some kind of weight, put my muscles under tension, and I'm gonna have to give that exercise a part of my day, right? Right. But the muscle doesn't grow from you working out. It actually grows from the recovery the muscle gets while it's resting. Wow. So it breaks the muscle down, and it's what they would call potential actualization. Like it is now, the muscle is now ready to grow because you did something to it. But it has to then be fed with the nutrients that you're eating, with the sleep that you're getting. Like it comes and recovers that muscle and builds it back stronger, right? Yeah. And so it's this delicate balance. Like a long time ago, bodybuilders thought just more workout was better. Yeah. If I could be in the gym twice, I could be in the gym 3 times a day. Like more was better. But 1, they didn't get as much gains as they thought they would get. And 2, their bodies broke down like crazy at the end of their life. Right. Yeah. Like really painful. Yeah. Now it's like a science. They're like, no, I only work out for 45 minutes and then I make sure I get 8 hours of sleep, because they're seeing the balance of those 2 things gets them the result they're looking for. For us, it's just easy to always be giving. Yeah. And everything's run by their schedules. It's run by their needs, by their demands, and a slow burnout builds, even a slow bitterness builds. Yeah. I've noticed that in me. Like if I have over-indexed how much I'm giving and not giving myself permission to even say, I remember my therapist one time said, I was like, why do I hate the weekends? I was like, I used to love the weekends. And he's like, man, my guess is from knowing you don't know it's okay to say no. You don't know if they're asking, Dad, will you kick the soccer ball with me, that you don't have to say yes every time. Right. I was like, whoa, yeah, you're right. So huge. I was like, I feel incredibly guilty if I'm not doing anything. Like there's no real good excuse. I just don't want to. Yeah. I just don't want to. And he's like, that's fine. And he's like, because my personality is like, we're not going to do that all day, or you're not going to say no every time.
Yes.
So it's not like you're forever rejecting kicking a soccer ball with your kid, but you could say, just not right now. Can you give me an hour?
Yeah.
And I was like, that was revolutionary to me,
Which is like so dumb. It's like they start taking over the house. And it's like almost like I think, and I'm just thinking when my kids were little, it's like a peacekeeping. If everyone, we just keep the peace. If nobody's complaining, everybody's busy. And then you become like the camp director that's like, you're just like, you guys have even had to put a bolt on the pantry because it's like all the friends. And you've really struggled with that this year too, to go like, what are the boundaries around like, we love having kids over, but it can't be 24 hours a day, all the meals of your day. So give us some more permission. What else? What are other practical ways we can say no? The pantry.
Well, again, I want to just change. Yeah. I mean, again, I just want to change your mindset. Like I started noticing however I was going about things, I was not nice to their friends. Like, and I didn't like that. Like I'm like, in my heart, I want to be the house that kids come over. I want this to feel like a second home.
Yeah.
But I'm like pretty mean. And then my wife would always be like, you're not mean. I'm like, to me, it feels mean.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling myself.
Yeah.
And it's because I've been run over so much.
Yeah.
And the more I actually regained my space and regained my boundaries, the more I was actually happy to see them.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, bud, you can have a snack. Like, I remember they were just taking without asking nonstop. Yeah. And that was bothering me. And so when I finally got them to like ask me and they were doing it, I found I was much more happy to say yes. There was like a basic respect of like, Mr. Drew, can I have a snack? I was like, sure, you can have a snack.
Yeah.
And I started being nicer. And like, so it's just funny that like when we don't take care of ourselves, we actually become a worse version of ourselves.
Oh, wow.
So I do an exercise with clients just to, again, I have to convince them to take care of themselves and to prioritize themselves. And so what I would have them do, in their case, would be a work case. For your moms, it could be if they're stay at home or work, but a day with your kids where you say, can you think back on a day that you felt like you crushed it as a parent? You were who you wanted to be, not just in the actions, but in the heart and the mindset and the connection that you had with your kids. And I would say, how were you feeling that day? How were you feeling? And you'd probably think back on that day and be like, I had energy. I felt kind of at peace. I felt optimistic. I felt loving. I felt whatever. And you'd be like, cool. Now think back on a day that you were really embarrassed about yourself. You're just like, man. And I would say not worst day ever, not best day either. Like we're looking for like a typical good day and a typical tough day. And you'd say, how would you describe yourself on how you were feeling on those days? Not at the end of the day, not the shame you felt at the end of the day, but like just when you're trying to connect with your kids or whatever. You might have felt exhausted. I had a headache. I felt like really a lot of guilt, or I felt overwhelmed. And it's like, okay, so those are feeling states. And so the feeling state we're in is really critical to the output that we get. Now, we all have learned how to push through it and still be loving and still show up and still whatever. Like, is that really the days we want to have most often? And I'm like, what if we could be who we wanted to be on purpose instead of showing up and being who we are in accident?
Wow.
That's the question.
Yeah.
How could I be more of that person on purpose? And it's kind of a reverse engineering. That person was well kept.
Yeah.
That person probably had good sleep.
Yeah.
That person probably had a great night with their husband the night before, their friends the night before. They had something that filled them up, something that like made them feel alive again and feel like ready for the day and felt like their house was in order, or whatever it takes for you to feel good, got the best out of you for all those you care about.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's the mindset shift of like, oh, this is not the way I put it in my talk is this is not a luxury or a reward. This is a key ingredient to me showing up.
Which I don't do. This has been a struggle my whole life. It's we're our mother's child and our dad, like we like to get after it and we like to just be there for everybody and say that we were there. And I think that as you're talking, I'm like, it's just counterintuitive to say do less so that you can be more.
Yes.
And I think my kids would say the same thing. They're like, when you're doing less, you're nicer. When you're doing less, we get your eye contact. And I had to find that the hard way. You have a friend named Jerome that we'll link to that we both had the same diagnosis as Chiari malformation. And you had said, hey, talk to him about your migraines. And he said, real honestly, like, you're probably not going to have the brain surgery you need. Probably not a good idea, but you can get physical and mental rest. And I was like, what is that? Like, I just have never operated. And so I'm an extreme person. So I took 3 years off and rested. I got real good at rest. But I did notice a difference in my peace. I wasn't like shaking. I've mentioned this story several times. But one time I was driving to get the girls at school and I forgot like where I was on the road and I was like physically shaking. And I'm like, your body will indicate like, I mean, it's just like this massive like fight or flight mode that you're like, this can't be sustainable. Like you're gonna crash. And I don't want to put all of it on migraines, but when I'm wall to wall with assignments or I speak too much or whatever, I definitely have more. It's not the whole story. And so this is so helpful. I'm like processing as you're talking.
Well, the cool part is you got to see the opposite too. Cause I know when you went that extreme and took 3 years off, it was good in some sense, but also not good in other senses.
Correct.
Right. And so that's why I like that formula of stress plus recovery equals growth, because if you have too much stress and too little recovery, you get injury. And that's what you were experiencing the first time. It was like, I'm having an emotional injury, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But if you go the other way, where you have too little stress and too much recovery, you get atrophy.
That's right.
And that's where you feel like I'm wasting away. I'm not using my potential. I'm not excited because I'm stepping into something, right?
That's right.
And so it's never a fixed thing. Life never gives us this like perfect formula where we have it all. But it's like,
wouldn't that be awesome?
Oh, if I could take that in a drug, I would. But it's always like little playing of the dial, like, oh, I need to turn up the output.
That's right.
I want to like, I think I'm suffering a little bit because I'm not stepping into something, or I need to turn up the recovery because I am traveling. Let's say you are traveling and speaking a lot. Okay, cool. That can be fine if I'm pairing that with I got good sleep or I took a day off before I traveled and whatever. And that's the stuff that I've always felt guilty to do.
Yeah.
That even my business partner, like when I was speaking all the time, he would look at my calendar and he goes, why do you have meetings all day before? And why do you have meetings the morning after when you're flying back?
So good.
And I was like, because technically I was leaving this time and getting back this time. And he was like, but why? He's like, just take the day off before, let yourself prepare, let yourself. And I was like, I can do that.
Yeah.
So many times the answer comes after you saying, I can do that.
Yeah.
I'm allowed. Like it's like self-permission. You're
right.
Like, really? I'm allowed to do that? And it's
I didn't know. That's so
I even
funny.
had a CEO I was working with where what she realized she needed, and we can get into this in a second because there's 4 different areas you can work on your energy, was she needed time to focus. She was so pulled in every direction by her business that she felt like she never got a chance to like reflect, think, and then move.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, we have something called CEO time, which is just an hour a week that you are with yourself. You're not in a meeting with anybody else, and you get to reflect however you want, however you think that time would be best spent. And she was like, that sounds amazing. I wish I could do that. And I knew where she was going. So I just kept playing the game. I was like, well, just for game's sake, like if you could do it, when would it be? Would it be the beginning of the week? Would it be the end of the week? She was like, Friday would be awesome. Because then I could think about what just happened. I could think before going to the weekend, what next week's gonna look like. And then I could rest on the weekend. I was like, that'd be cool. All right. So why can't we do it on Fridays? And she was like, I just got too many meetings. And I was like, okay. So I got an idea. I'm going to call your boss and I'm going to ask her for permission for you to move one of those meetings. And she was like, what? She's like, I don't have a boss. I was like, I know. I was like, exactly. I was like, this is your company. She started herself as a multinational company. I was like, you can do whatever the heck you want to do. And she goes, you're right. And I was like, I got one homework assignment for you. I was like, call me tomorrow when you figured out which meeting you're moving.
Love it.
Call me 30 minutes later. She was like, it really didn't take that much thought. She's like, once I realized I had permission to do it, she was like, I realized there was a meeting I didn't need to be in anyways. I don't even know why I was in that meeting.
Yeah.
And I just said, I'm out. And now I have my CEO time on Friday. And so again, we can get to the practicals, but so many times, even if you know what to do, you won't do it for some internal reason.
Yeah.
There's prohibitions and inhibitions. Prohibitions are external things that actually stop you from doing something.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to drink and drive. I'm not allowed to show up to my school and take a kid out without showing an ID because I might not be their parent. Like those are prohibitions. But most people are held back by inhibitions, that they are confused and treat them like prohibitions. Inhibitions is an internal reason why I don't let myself do something.
Wow.
And we're confused. We feel like it's something outside of us saying can't. But most of the time, it's inside of you saying, shouldn't. And it's like, well, maybe I should.
Okay, is this an example of one? Let me give you a real-time example. So
Yeah.
for years, I have done a certain volunteer role at the school, and it wipes me out. It's in Christmas time. And this year I said no. And I just said, I can't do it this year. Y'all need to find someone else. And I gave them enough time,
Yep.
And one of the person's response was, well, I'm busy too. And I was like, and so like that internal thing is like, I want to show that I care about the school. I want to be perceived as someone who shows up and volunteers. I
Yeah.
don't want to be perceived. So there's all this like what others think, which takes a lot of maturity to be like, I know my limits. And what also the 3 years revealed to me is I have a lower capacity than I thought I did. I was like, I'm basically super mom. And then it turns out I'm not. And my capacity for sleep is different than someone else. Or need for sleep, my capacity for a number of days in the week I can podcast is different than someone else. And so I think I'm inching into at 48, like maturity and just confidence to be like, I know what I need. And I need to have the kahunas to say it and not worry about people's reaction to it, which can be really hard for moms. Like we want to be liked. We want people to see that we're like all in. We want to be the volunteer mom, like all the things.
Oh, 100%. And that's someone else's problem. Like often someone choosing freedom for themselves will trigger the prisoner in somebody else.
Oh, wow.
And they'll be like, wait, why are you allowed to do that? And it's like, you are too. You totally could too. I remember Rob Bell talking about that, like pastors always justifying their vacations.
Yes.
And they'd be like, I saw you went to Hawaii. And they'd be like, well, we had points and somebody gifted us a free stay at a hotel. And he's like, dude, just say it was a good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's we're so worried about how it's going to be perceived. And again, if it triggers somebody else, I know it's easier said than done, but just remember, like, it's just triggering their own inhibitions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not prohibitions, because no one's stopping them from saying no.
I love it. All right. Well, Fastline, I wish I could have you like for 3 hours. We're going to have to do another, but do the 4 areas that we just need to go in thinking about. This is all super helpful. And I don't know, in one of those, can you touch on, I think you and Caroline are really good about supporting each other in this. And so that is one of my takeaways is like, could I leave this conversation and sit down with Ron and say, what does that look like for both of us? Like, can I not throw him an attitude if he just wants to lay and watch football for 4? What are the things that we could both, I think you and Caroline do that really well. Say like, I'm going to the gym or I'm going on this trip with my friends. Like y'all are very good about supporting those recovery things for each other. So 4 areas, if you want to highlight those, I know that's super fast, but whatever.
Yeah. So I think about it as different categories of energy. So it's either I need to increase the quantity of energy. I'd like to change the quality of energy. I need focus to my energy, or I need purpose to my energy.
Okay.
And so now each of these areas affects the other. So if you get too technical with it, you'd be like, well, if I change this, it does change the quality of energy. I know, but this is what's most largely responsible for it. So if I want to increase the quantity of energy, I just feel tired all the time.
Yeah.
We got to start with the body.
Yeah.
It's a physical component. It's most largely connected to our physical meat suit that we carry around every day.
Okay.
And the 4 things there that are just no-brainers, and it doesn't have to be all 4, but you can just pick, if that's your category, pick one of these to start experimenting with. It would either be exercise, nutrition, sleep, and active recovery.
Okay.
So exercise is just moving your body. Like and it doesn't have to be a marathon. Like most of us are so extreme that we're like, I've got to do the most extreme version of exercise. It's got to be CrossFit, or it's got to be training for a marathon. It can be walking 30 minutes 3 times a week. It can be, there's a significant benefit already that the studies show 30 minutes of walking 3 times a week. Now it gets better if you did 5 times a week, but there's already a significant improvement in your energy levels just from walking. So if that's what you want to do, or play pickleball, or have a dance class, or it doesn't matter. Your body moving is moving to it, and it's activating certain things in you. Sleep is another one. I've had so many clients that didn't realize they had sleep apnea that got on a CPAP machine and felt 10 years younger.
Wow.
Because they actually got a full night's sleep. It's kind of like when you plug your phone in at night, it actually charged it all night.
Wow.
Instead of it was off and on, not charging. Nutrition, again, I like to keep it simple. I'm not the best at nutrition. I'm not like Caroline's way better than me at this. She's counting her macros. She's doing all that kind of stuff. It's just, for me, I was like, can I cut out one or two bad things?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the discipline to commit to some crazy diet or something. But when I started getting better in shape, it was like, could I do less soft drinks? Or do I always have to get fried foods?
Yeah.
Could I try something and I got to find something I like. You
Yeah.
won't stick with it if you can't find something you like.
That's true.
And so again, you could go as far in any of these categories as you feel motivated to go, but even taking any initiative, having a little bit better diet, having a little better sleep, having a little more exercise will start to noticeably increase the quantity of energy.
Okay.
The quality of energy is our emotional life. What do I need emotionally to feel more positive emotions?
Wow.
Not that we're demonizing negative emotions, but no one likes their life when it's predominantly negative emotions.
Right.
Versus predominantly positive, then I handle when I feel down or when I feel anxious or when I feel whatever. And there seems to be a few things there. One is connection with others. There's just no getting around it. Isolation is the biggest killer of our emotional life. And so that's why for me, the Marco Polo app, trying to even be better with connecting with my wife and not just running a household together, taking time, like you said, I do that once a year trip with my friends. Any of those types of things, just it resets you somehow where you're not feeling alone or lost in your thoughts or down on yourself or
so good.
Fun. I mean, the second one is fun. And that could be friends, that could be a hobby, that could be, but something that isn't serious, something that just, for whatever reason, you like it. You don't have to tell anybody why, but you like to watch these shows or you like to whatever. It's just something for me, golf, or I'm still trying to ask right now. That's one of my bigger questions is like, at this stage of my life, what can I enjoy?
Yeah.
And it's a question that I'm kind of keeping open-ended right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I went to one of those, you remember back in the day when I was at Chick-fil-A, we did all those like global leadership seminars. I mean, I would geek out. I loved it. And I haven't been doing that professional development in so long. I mean, I would listen to podcasts, whatever, but I haven't been around other leaders. It's just like, so someone invited me one that Craig Rochelle was doing in Dallas. And my friend Lauren was like, can you just go with me? And I was like, yeah, I was doing it as a favor. Like, I'll just go with you.
Yeah.
I was like, it was like just energy pumping through my veins. I was like, I miss this. Like, I miss being in an audience, like learning and getting motivated and leaving that thing going like, I can change the world. And so stuff like that, I am starting to pay attention to be like, yes, I know dance. Like if I were to get back into tap studio, it would be so fun. But that kind of stuff surprised me. That was like, oh, I miss that. It was so fun.
Yes. So that question, what lights you up? Like what lights you up? That just fills you with, I mean, music is actually a big one for me.
Yeah.
Like as silly as it is, Caroline told me the other day, she's like, you need to go and listen to music more.
Yeah.
Like, don't sit in the coffee shop and just work. She's like, let yourself go on a walk, listen to music while you're thinking about a book or whatever. And she's right. It just puts me in a good space, in a good mood. So again, prioritizing those things. Third might be some sort of counseling or investing in understanding emotional tools. Like it's called emotional flexibility versus emotional rigidity, that we start to feel equipped because no one taught us this crap. That if I get stuck in a mood, if something happens and I have a repetitive pattern of getting angry, or how do I work with that emotion? Like what tools and understandings are out there that I can let that flow a little bit easier? Where it doesn't catch me the whole day and I'm stuck in it and whatever. And so again, whether it be counseling or a book you read or something, but investing in something that you feel like you know how to flow with your emotions a little better. Because our natural point, and this took me years in my anxiety recovery, is to realize peace is your natural state. Peace, joy, love, those types of things actually are your natural state. Everything else is a temporary deviation. And so it's not about like, what do I need to do to become peaceful? What do I need to do to become happy? It's how do I work with the circumstances and emotions that are temporarily moving me from that state? And if I know how to let them flow on their own and not get caught in their games, what naturally you come back to is your peace.
Wow.
It is your love, is your joy, your optimism. It's not needing to be contrived. It's just the other ones need to be stewarded better, like related to differently, you know? So that's the emotional side.
So you started with,
physical.
Low energy, and that's the things with exercise and all that. And then this is quality.
Yeah, quantity of energy was first, now quality of energy. And then the third is focus of energy.
Okay.
This is when you feel like the Apple death wheel. This is when your mind is just spinning. And you can
Yeah.
also get in what they call functional freeze, where you feel so overwhelmed that you don't want to do anything. And
Yeah.
so you're in this avoidant thing, and then you're doing everything, and then you stop and can't do anything. And it's because you feel scattered, and your brain
Mm.
doesn't like feeling scattered.
Yeah.
And so often that will feel like the first category, a lack of energy, but it's because we're feeling so drained mentally. It's not our
Right.
physical. Our physical, I've told people all the time, I've met people with their Fitbit on, they got their 10,000 steps in, that's still a jerk, you know? And it's like, yeah, you're doing all this stuff and you're working out all the time, but you still have energy issues. And
Yeah.
so it might be the emotional one, or it could be the mental one. And so anywhere you can bring focus to your life, anywhere you can bring prioritization, anywhere that you can say, I value this more in this season than this, I'm going to do this, not this,
Mm.
is going to immediately give you back energy and make you feel like I can do this, because you'll start to being laser focused. Less energy is even required to kind of make progress on
Yeah.
something you care about. And so
Give me an example of what
in life or in work,
either, maybe in parenting or in like your world.
well, okay. So one of the things that we don't do it as much as we should, but we have done it enough over the years, you talk about me and Caroline, is it could be overwhelming sometimes to know how to meet the needs of our partner.
Yeah.
And so I would have that Apple death wheel of like, if we started asking and each person gives 10 things that they, I was thinking about the movie 10 Things I Hate About You, but like 10 things that I wish you would change or you would do better for me. The other person just gets the Apple death wheel look. Like, I'm already overwhelmed. How am I going to change that many things?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it feels like you're asking for more than I have to give.
That's
Right.
right. Yeah.
And so I decided to change the game one time at dinner, and I said, what is one thing that you need most from me in this season? And at that time, when I first asked that question, we had really little kids, and she was going crazy in the house. And she was like, I need 1 hour a day that I can go anywhere and no one's asking when I'm going to be back.
It's good.
Like it might be for a purpose. I might be getting groceries, or I might be wandering the aisles of Target,
Right.
just looking at things.
It's so real.
She's like, I just need an hour out of the house, and I can't get the text message, when are you coming home? She's
Yeah.
like, then I feel guilty while I'm out.
Wow.
And I said, deal, as long as you do come home. Like,
Please come back.
as long as you do come home. And then she asked me the same question. She was like, what's one thing you need in this season? And I was like, I am just so tired of being overweight and not having energy. And I was like, she used to joke with me because I would play with it. I was always a skinny, like I'd never had fat. I was like playing with it, like this foreign thing on my body. And I was like, we're both so busy and I work from home, but like, I need 1 hour that I can go to the gym and not feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
And she was like, got you. And when
Wow.
it's one thing, you can do it so much easier
Yeah.
than a million things. And so
That's
you can do
right.
the same thing with my kids. Like, hey, what's one thing this kid needs most from me in this season?
It's great.
I did that with my friend. He was feeling so overwhelmed by one of his kids' issues and all that kind of stuff. And the answer that came to him was connection.
Wow.
And he was like, I'm just going to focus on that.
So
Not
good.
this. I'm just going to bring him along with, like, if I'm going to the store, I'm going to ask him to come with me. I'm going to work on connection with my kid. And so I think we can feel overwhelmed by the amount of things we could focus on in our parenting or whatever. Let's at least nail one thing and give the other some time.
It's
And
great.
just say, like, if I have energy for the other things, I will. If I don't, I know I nailed the one thing that felt most important in this stage of our life, in this season of our life. So that's the mental focus. And then the fourth is spiritual, which y'all probably nail more than most. But the spiritual component brings purpose to our energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people all the time, because I'm not always talking to a Christian audience, I'm like, I don't know what you want to call it. You might call it soul or whatever, but we do better when we have the answer to why we're doing something.
It's good.
Connected to purpose, connected to values. It helps you get back up and keep going. And so when we feel connected to who we are, why we're doing what we're doing, and where we're going, it kind of supercharges everything below that we talked about.
Yeah.
It gives us extra reason why we would take care of our body, or why we would invest in our heart, or why we would focus our mind. When we lose that, it all starts to feel meaningless.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it's just another day. It's just another day on repeat. Nothing's going to change. We start feeling hopeless. We start feeling whatever. So those are the four things. But I'm glad we brought that up, because I was going to end with that exercise. If you hear anything, one, don't try to change all four of these.
Mm-hmm.
That is a disaster. Like, your life's too busy. Don't go like, all right, what am I changing physically? What am I changing emotionally? What am I changing in my mental? What am I changing spiritual? Pick one. Just
Yeah.
ask, out of those 4 categories, where would my life improve the most? And
Mm-hmm.
usually it's going to be, again, a permission thing, like, or you see it as caring for yourself. Like, I never stuck to exercise until I saw it as caring for myself. The guilt, the shame, the whatever never motivated me beyond 2 weeks to
Yeah.
do something.
Yeah.
But when I saw it connected to how I felt and I liked feeling better, it
Yeah.
was a different relationship for why I would go work out. I was
Yeah.
like, I like feeling better. It makes me feel more confident, more energy, more whatever. And it was less even rigid. Like, I would tell you this, I would tell anyone listening. The biggest mistake I see people make with exercise or really any commitment is it's either a 0 or a 10.
Yep. Yep.
And I started to embrace a 7, a
Mm.
5, a 3. I started embracing all of
Good.
those.
Good. Because I'm
Like,
like at a 2. Perfect.
no, but that's the only thing we have to worry about is going to 0,
It's good.
because 0 is so hard to get out of.
Yep.
0 is inertia, and it takes so much energy just to get back into doing the habit of anything,
Yeah.
that if I'm really busy, I'm okay that I'm not at the gym and I'm taking walks 3 times a week,
That's great.
because I'm at least still in the habit of moving my body. And then when life chills out a little bit, or I feel a little bit more capacity, then I'll go back to the gym. Then I'll do whatever. And right now I'm back at the gym. But for a few months before that, I wasn't.
Yeah.
But I noticed a long-term thing in any of these categories is just don't go to a 0.
Okay. So good.
If you got energy, turn it up to a 10. If you want to go all out, great. If life gets crazy, a kid is going through something, whatever, give yourself the grace to go down to a 7, to a 5, to a 3.
So good.
Just don't go to 0, because that's when
Well,
you
and
really
what you're
feel.
saying, like it makes me think of like the emotional health to say, like, if I in a dream world had the money and time, I would be seeing a therapist every week. But then there's times that you go to 0 and you're like, I'm floundering. But in the meantime, I called you and we processed a
Yes.
couple of things, or I got my small group and we thought through some things. So
Yes.
very helpful. Very, very
Yes.
helpful. I'm obsessed with you. I said this in the intro, but guys, if you have a surprise baby, my mom did not know she was going to have this one. And you rocked our world. And anytime I have a friend that gets unexpectedly pregnant with another one, I'm like, you need to meet my brother, because
Aw.
you are like the biggest gift to our family and wiser than all of us combined. And I love that. I love that you teach us stuff all the time with such humility. Like, I just love it's just who you are. And one practical example recently, I think I shared on this podcast that I lost my mind at the nail salon recently and like cried, and everybody's laughing. And I look over and Drew has the processing eyes, and Campbell has these too. He's thinking. And he's like, that was funny. That's sad. But I'm thinking about why you had that reaction. I'm like, that is so who you are and why you're good at your job right now, is you're just processing like how people work, how can they work through those things. And so I know you have a few spots this year for clients. Tell me who do you love working with the most? Who would you just get geeked out if somebody contacted you about working with their teams?
I mean, I love someone who is ambitious that cares about people. If it's both, like, they really are ambitious. They're doing cool stuff in the world. They're excited about their mission, but they are really excited about their people. And they just want an awesome culture, and they want talented, healthy people. I get super excited to work with any CEO or teams that are like that.
Love it. All right. Where do they find you? How can they get on your list?
Sure. They can email me, drew@mm.coach, or they can go to peopleprofit.com.
Okay. I love you, bud. I'm so proud of you. Let's do it again. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Pardon the Mess. As always, we've got more encouragement and resources over at christianparenting.org. And you can also stay connected with us on social media at Pardon the Mess. And if you like this episode, I'd love for you to do 2 things. Press follow on whatever podcast platform you love, and also be sure to leave a rating so other parents can find us. Remember, you're never alone in this beautiful mess of parenting.